to episode 215 of Fit to Food Radio. And my name is Keris. And again, this is another solo episode. I usually do these with my other half, Matt Whitmore. But I had a really lovely response to the last episode, 214, which I did on my own, just giving a little bit of an insight into my own journey with chronic health issues and how I've moved into using Mindbody practices, which have been an amazing addition to all the things that we've been talking about for years, the nutrition, the exercise, sleep, looking at mindset generally, having a dog. But the Mindbody education that I've received has been a real game changer for me. And I've shared it with so many clients and I'm seeing exactly the same changes in them. So I do feel a real draw to share it with you all. And one thing that I received quite a few messages about was actually the topic of anxiety. After I shared in episode 214 that I definitely, as a result of illness and various other things, lots of events in life that I couldn't control, really began to fall into a struggle with anxiety on a daily basis, which was worsening. And sometimes as well, when we actually begin Mindbody practices, it almost, because we do less and start to sit still a bit more, we realize just how much anxiety might be there underlying or behind the scenes. And we've just been keeping really busy. So for me personally, always working. When I wasn't working, I was generally like buzzing around the house, cleaning, doing the gardening, shopping, anything. I love doing. And when I was doing all these things, I'd have podcasts on in the background, audible books, always learning at the same time. So just a master of multitasking. And when it actually came to trying to implement some Mindbody practices and learning things like meditation, it was such a struggle to sit still and such a struggle to be with my thoughts and sit even and experience my body. My body had become something over time that I was constantly trying to change and to shape and mold in a way that I wanted it to be, you could argue, healthy, but at times we all get lost in that body image story where that's not so healthy either. So it was this kind of vessel that carried my head around on that I just wanted to look acceptable and not let me down in any way in terms of maintain my ability to move and do all the things that I wanted. And I really didn't understand just how much this is where our kind of innate intelligence is based. And as I said in the last episode, this is where your emotions actually are generated. And we have these body minds based around our organs like our heart, gut, bladder, lungs that are constantly reading situations and are trying to understand, are we safe? Are we threatened in any way? Are we in danger? And emotions, which are generated in the body, our primary ones especially, are always, they're very strongly linked with our health because they're also energy and motion. So they're generated as part of our survival response. And obviously other aspects of our life that we have joy and happiness to allow us to bond. But some of the emotions that we might not like, sadness and anger and fear, are actually there to help us survive in certain situations. So anger is our boundary and fear helps us to be vigilant and basically save our lives and act really fast. And the body is where all of this is taking place. So emotions are these really important aspects of our health that are often underlying conditions like anxiety, and we're completely unaware of the difference between the two. In fact, in a lot of conversations and talks that I've attended since learning this, I often see how people do mix up core primary emotions, which are pre-verbal and part of your biology or physiology. They're generated in the body to actually have impact on your nervous system and the organs and everything and how it's working, because they're there to help us to survive and act. And then we have thoughts and feelings or secondary emotions, which are more linked to the thinking mind. And these are a little bit more focused on kind of social safety. So obviously we want to be, and have always been right back to ancestral times, part of a tribe. We want to fit in and be a kind of a human being in a way that obviously we don't behave so that people are going to reject and judge us. But of course, that's gone a little bit further with social media, technology. And even if you are a person who's very in tune with yourself in terms of your sensitivity, and this will also go back to the first years of your life and your attachments, whether you had caregivers who were there to help you understand emotions, help you to offer unconditional love. So you also had a sense of self and a confidence about you, which have to having seen hundreds and hundreds of cases in the 17 years I've been working in nutrition, I don't know many people that had many caregivers online all the time offering that unconditional love. And that's nobody's fault. It's just circumstances, situation, cultural conditioning, all these things come in. And if we don't have that, then again, we might decide that certain emotions are not safe and not nice to feel. So we might suppress them. And we might also then get a bit more drawn up into the mind and focusing on external stuff and social safety. And again, anxiety is a real part of that. So anxiety really doesn't necessarily help from that survival perspective. We have fear for that. So again, if you've ever stepped up in front of 100 people to do a presentation, you'll know fear. If you've ever stepped out and saw a car come and jump back, fear. I think I gave an example before. Whenever I'm walking Hamish and I see a dog that looks dangerous, I feel fear instantly coming into my system. And as I said, it's pre-verbal, it's energy in motion, and emotion is there to allow us to have a physical response to something and to be able to protect ourselves. Often if it's something like anger or fear. And sadness, as I said, is there to help us process loss and be able to let things go. And if we don't even let sadness in, which is very common, I think now I've spoken to lots of clients where it's clear that they haven't given themselves space to grieve big grievances. So it could be parents, siblings, partners, friends, and actually feel that viscerally and have real crying episodes. Then what can happen is it's all repressed. I think the fact that you're not given a decent amount of time off work doesn't help. People have actually talked about having grief leave, like maternity leave, extended a bit more. Then you can process the experience and feel it somatically. That means within your body, you can have those real kind of painful crying episodes where you actually realize you'll never see the person again, and then you can move on. And this was really helpful for me to understand when it comes to things like anxiety. What we've done there is maybe suppressed fear or other emotions. And then because we're not feeling them, the system isn't regulating in a way that it should. Your nervous system may have gone into what we call hypervigilance. So the nervous system and emotions are working together. As you have a couple of responses from our nervous system. It's a bit more nuanced than just fight and flight and rest, digest, reproduce, because we know that there's different phases and the nervous system oscillates between them. So great researchers on this, like Stephen Porges, he now has polyvagal theory, just discussing how we've got fight, flight, freeze, fawn, faint, flop. Peter Levine has also done some great work in Waking the Tiger, where he says that like the entire system and definitely the fascia start to really respond to these threats that we perceive. And often they are kind of physical in the fascia. And if we are unable to actually process these properly, sometimes they are often stored in the body. And this is where you're seeing, again, great research from Bessel van der Kolk, Body Keeps the Score, Gabor Mate. But also with anxiety, what can happen is the mind tries to take over. Because we haven't processed the event, we will lack that safety. Our nervous system is upregulating to compensate. And this is where we start doing things like trying to excessively future-proof and overthinking situations constantly. It can make decisions and normal life really overwhelming very fast. And just normal things that you used to be able to do suddenly become really, really challenging. And what anxiety, the way that it works often is it's kind of often taking the past and using it to predict the future. So it means you really struggle to be in the present moment. And if people tell you to meditate or sit still, your mind just really gets louder and louder with lots of thoughts that don't really make sense. But this could also happen if we're repressing things like anger, then we just get irritation, impatience, frustration. So when we have these thought streams that are very chaotic, constant, loud, never shutting up, like we do our own heads in with the way that our mind is just constantly going, it's really helpful to think about the flavor of those thoughts, because there's probably an emotion linked to an experience that you have not processed, and you have experienced it but not allowed the energy and motion to move through the body as it was supposed to. And as a result of that, we're going neck up, and then we have all these thought streams to basically focus on. So we're projecting out to social safety instead of actually the real thing we need to do is return back to the body. So again, when I work with clients, I often see that this builds over time, and they might have considered themselves a bit of a worrier, but now they're actually developing anxiety about very simple things, driving a car. Some are actually leaving the house, getting on a train. Some of my clients have started to experience panic attacks again. Many of them have said that they feel it's linked to perimenopause and menopause as women. But what I will say is it's hard to tell, because there's also in midlife, and we've had lockdown. And so quite a lot has happened in terms of our world getting smaller and smaller, more intense. The big wide world is getting more and more chaotic. And obviously we've got larger threats that are looming, which we're being exposed to through our newsfeed every single day. And then we do have hormone changes, and maybe those hormone changes are affecting your ability to do the override that you would usually do. So if you're someone who's generally used firing up the laptop or the phone to override, or perhaps you went towards alcohol, or perhaps it was exercise, obviously as hormone levels begin to fluctuate and lower, you may feel a bit more, you may feel more symptoms. So you've got to maybe scale back the alcohol. But of course, the alcohol was providing that anti-anxiolytic effect, having that nice sedative effect at the end of the day. So if we remove that, then we're suddenly aware of how we feel. And again, this topic came up quite a lot with clients, that it's towards the end of the day. Some people definitely feel more anxiety first thing in the morning, because that's when the conscious mind can just jump into action. So it can be really loud, and you often have programs that you start running straight away. So you might start worrying about work. You might start worrying about the amount that you have to do. Your mind will suggest that there's an overwhelming amount to do. And then you're suddenly being triggered to have almost like a physical response of panic anxiety to that. And it's really helpful to, first of all, again, note the flavor of the thought. And once you begin, as I mentioned in the previous episode, these practices of yoga nidras and guided emotional allowing, they're very somatic practices. You can just do half an hour a day of lying very still, doing that body scan, tapping into the body. We can start to move the energy through that was there from previous experiences. And then what will generally happen is the mind and the programs we run over time will update. And I wish I could tell you that this happened that quick, but you may have a lot of emotions to process and experiences that need to be basically observed and completed through the body physically. But over time, you will start to notice just like a fading of the things that didn't make sense. So if you have a lot of repressed anger and you've become a very irritated, impatient person, maybe very resentful. I have lots of clients actually who are very generous, kind, often too kind. You know, we've got the goodism stuff going on. They had lots of difficult experiences when they were younger, and they found safety. So remember, our systems are always looking for safety, and they found safety in rescuing and showing up and really looking after everybody else. And they've transferred that to work, and maybe taken on more kind of like caring pastoral roles where possible, but also never wanting to let the team down, and therefore just spinning too many plates and spreading themselves too thinly. And it only takes a couple more things to happen within the family, and it's like, oh my God, I can't cope with all this stuff. And if you've found kind of safety in those areas of your life, what you might find is eventually one thing that kicks in is this immense like fatigue, because you simply can't keep doing it. And the body's telling you this with that fatigue. But also what I notice is there's this resentment, this jealousy, this kind of, it's like this, you're slightly starting to see then it is suggesting at this repressed anger that maybe you're not able to feel as people take advantage. But also you facilitate that process sometimes by jumping in and rescuing and caring, and maybe not letting that person have the struggle that they needed to develop their own coping skills and self-sufficiency. So if you are starting to notice those kind of feelings and traits, again, it's really good to then dive down into the body and start to notice that energy moving around. And with these practices over time, you can start to process that. And what you will find is that actually, if you are genuinely angry at somebody, you'll be able to say that very sensibly and with a coherence that is actually, you're taking the rip here, like you're taking a mic. Sorry, it's a word. You're taking a mic, you're taking advantage. I've been helpful, but now, I'm going to have to say no to that. And you don't feel the kind of guilt and shame, which, by the way, is another mechanism where we're going up into the mind and creating this distraction because we don't want to feel something. But just going back to the anxiety, again, what you're doing is projecting that fear out somewhere else because you don't want to go in and feel it and actually that physical discomfort of it. So if you have noticed again that you're getting anxious about a holiday in 6 months' time, or for me, it was often a lot of anxiety around loved ones suffering. And I would literally start to project all of these terrible things happening to them and how that would be impossible for me to feel and bear. And of course, it makes no sense because those things actually might happen and they actually may not. And if they might happen, I need to know that I am able to cope with that and actually experience it, because it's inevitable that we are going to lose loved ones and they may have illness and they may suffer. And we have to be able to walk through that with them. Obviously, if there's something logical we can do, we will do it, but we don't want to expend so much energy at the expense of our own health trying to fix people. That's when we've lost our way and we're really not helping them necessarily either. And of course, we'll often start to feel anxious and they will feel anxious. So again, we will start to, what we want is that kind of grounded, rooted response of, yeah, this is not good, but we can do this together. And you will get that back if you begin to just empty that email inbox with these processes. And I will say the kind of combination for me was, as I said before, just first of all, trying to do a little bit less. So even the things like the cleaning, the Netflixing, and the firing up the phone and the emails. So taking a few more breaks. And in these breaks, just maybe just doing a 10-minute guided body scan, 20 minutes. Towards the end of the day, doing something more like a guided emotional processing session with Sam Miller, who is my teacher. And once I'd learned the skill of this and you doing yoga nidras as well, I could actually do it like on my own. And so I would do it in the moment, sat at my desk when maybe I experienced something like an email come through that was perhaps I'd already planned a load of stuff to do that day, and an email comes in asking me to do 5 more things that I was like, oh my gosh. And I would feel it. I would like drop into the body and I would feel that physical sensation of, you could argue it's fear. I don't identify the emotion anymore. I just feel it and I allow it to be there. And then I'm able to respond in a really logical way and actually be like, I'm going to park that. And if I've got the energy to do it today, tomorrow, then it will be done. And if I haven't, then I will reply that I don't have capacity. Whereas what we tend to do with anxiety is stuff just keeps coming at us and we're just getting more and more wired. And I can't remember if I did mention this in the last episode, but one of the best movies that depicts this is actually Inside Out and Inside Out 2 by Disney. Because in the first episode, they have the core primary emotions that we have as a child that are there for our survival, safety, and to be part of the tribe. And we're very expressive. And obviously then things happen and we get responses to our emotions and we try and then figure out what's safe and not safe. And in the second Inside Out, as she enters adolescence, new, technically, feelings or secondary emotions come in. And these are anxiety, embarrassment, boredom, I think it's anything more, and envy. And guilt and shame should probably be in there as well. And the role of guilt and shame, if you think about it, I always think, I kind of go back to a tribal existence. And I'm like, on a hunt, would that really have served you to be feeling guilty about leaving your partner at home whilst you're out on the hunt? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. The things that people experience guilt and shame about now do not make sense. Appearance is a really obvious one. And usually what guilt and shame are there for is if we have made a genuine mistake, it's a feeling that comes up so that we apologize. And again, we keep the tribe happy to the point where, and by that, I'm not saying that we've taken this to next level, becoming people pleasers. So it's a thing where we want the tribe to be in this nice kind of, that everyone's resonating with each other, everyone's respectful, kind. Yes, there's disagreements. Yes, sometimes there's fallouts, but generally we're all getting along okay and we're working as a team. And there'll always be obviously individuals who do not like each other, but it doesn't mean that we don't have to, like, this might sound strange, but we can still love people and just not like them. We don't want them to come to any harm and we still care for them. We just don't like them. They're just, our personalities don't gel. And that's still the case today. But what's happened with guilt and shame, again, is we'll go to that as this amazing distraction and we apply it to everything. As I said, social interactions, family, saying no. So we have to get used to, when we do something like put a boundary in place, Or again, even when anxiety is kicking in, we need to maybe take a break from the laptop because this information is coming at us and overwhelming the system. If we could take a break and drop into the body and feel the discomfort of okay, what's going on? What am I experiencing in my body right now? I don't need to label it or understand it, but I'm just going to be here and allow it. Maybe for 1 minute, maybe for 10 minutes, whatever you feel you can tolerate at that time. And again, the kind of guilt and shame programs will also start to fade as a result of that, because those are coming up to essentially, as I've said, just distract you from something that you don't want to feel. But they're only really there if we make a genuine mistake. And the clients I work with are not making mistakes, and they feel constantly guilty and constantly ashamed or embarrassed about something. In fact, I think even embarrassment is this great distraction by the mind, because it's almost like we go there and lose ourselves in, again, that social safety element. We don't have to think about these really difficult experiences that we had in the past. And they're still there, as I've said, in the body and need that processing. So I hope this has made sense. And if you are struggling with anxiety, overwhelm, I still experience this. I'm still in this process of integration. I still wake up sometimes, I'm like, whoa, okay. It's always reminds me of boxing class, that when there was the bag that hangs down from the roof and you just used to pummel it with your hands. So mornings I woke up and it's just, whoa, like all these anxious thoughts coming in. And one of the great kind of practices that I've developed is just stepping back and being able to watch the thought stream and become the observer of that. And that's come more through the allowing and the meditation. So the emotional processing session is also called emotional allowing. And you can go to Sam Miller's YouTube channel and see that she has several of these recorded now. But also just becoming that observer of these and allowing the thoughts to come in has been really powerful. I don't try and resist anxious thoughts. I let them come in. This suggestion of like, wow, you have loads of emails. Oh my God, you have so much to do. Oh my God, have you seen your schedule for this month in particular, October? I had 2 retreats, 2 conferences to speak at in Croatia. I'm actually there now. I'm actually doing this from Croatia. And also a couple of menopause talks, Menopause Awareness Month, and all my usual client stuff. And I could feel my brain suggesting you should get really anxious about all this work you have to do, all of these talks. Who do you think you are? You're going to screw this up. What if you get ill? What if you get COVID? It just went on and on. And just every moment, allow that thought to be there. Allow that thought to be there, drop into the body, feel it viscerally. It's just old fear, just like moving through. In between all these events that I've gone off into the room, any private room I had, just lay on the floor, allow it to be there, allow it to be there, observe the thought. It's been the most powerful thing, because I know what I would have actually done through this whole month is a lot of running. I would take in a lot of any supplement I could get my hands on, B vitamins, multivitamins, anything to feel like I was just exhausting the system to get through. And then I probably would crash on the other side, as my gut will have been just contracting through the whole thing. Whereas now, even in my talks, I stand up in front of people and I allow the whole fearful sensations to come through the body. It's not nice, but I'm like, allow it to be there, allow it to be there. Afterwards, allow these thoughts to come in, that you forgot this, you didn't say that, you fucked up there. Allow it to come through, allow it to come through. Don't attach to the thought. If we attach to it, we've been had, basically. We've gone up into the head when what we're really trying to do is integrate an emotion, and then the thought streams are updated and will make a lot more sense because they're much more aligned with us and our health. And I love that saying, if you're lost in guilt and shame, you've been had. If you're going into anxiety about the future and things that may never happen, you've been had. If you're still worrying about the size of your thighs and what people think of you, you've been had. It's really about, let's go back into the body, respect its amazing, like innate intelligence, and process those emotions and return to the version of ourselves that we're supposed to be. So I really hope this resonates. And as I've said, one of the apps actually, I did use it actually for a short period of time, was Dare app. And they have a daily dare that you listen to. It's like a 15-minute. It's really nice. It's like a guided meditation or a story. And it is really about turning towards anxiety, because if we try to, a lot of methods that are designed to help with anxiety, like cognitive reframe, we might actually be overriding something that does need to be processed by going, I'm okay, I'm grateful I've got Hamish and Matt, I'm grateful to be in Portugal. It never worked for me, but we have to be careful with things like breath work, cold showers, ice baths to get rid of anxiety. Alcohol, drugs is pretty obvious, because it's just going to keep building, and more stuff is going to come in, and that's kind of the straw that will break the camel's back eventually. Whereas if we walk towards anxiety and we actually allow it to come through the body and feel it, often it's more fear that we're feeling physically, viscerally, then the thoughts eventually, the programs will update. And again, this can be linked to health anxiety as well. So when we start to allow the health anxiety thoughts to come in and not attach to them, and again, a great way that Sam Miller has explained this is it's like we're in a station on the platform, and the thought stream is a train, and you get on the train, you've attached to the thought, you're in it, you're going with it. And when we do sit still and do these practices, you might get on the train 100 times in 20 minutes. It's insane. But the minute you start it, you're like, but if I can get on the train, I'm not the train, which means that is not me, and I don't have to go with it. And that just sinks. I can't even tell you how long it will be. It was a little bit of time for me, and I was very resistant, and it's gradually landing with me. I don't have to go with that thought. I don't have to go with that thought. I know where most of them come from. So for me, the narrative coherence of understanding how my childhood, teens, and those experiences led to these thoughts and these safety mechanisms and these protective, some of my traits, perfectionism, it wasn't a choice. It was protective. If I did that, I was safe, and especially social safety. And I could kind of find some sense of identity there, but it was not it was a completely false idea, a fake idea, and say, and now what I'm doing is going back to the person that I was and always should have been. So if you can get to that point where you just start to see thoughts as trains, anxious thoughts in particular, it's a train coming through, you're going to get on it. And then you can say the word awareness, and you're back on the platform. Awareness, you're back on the platform. And gradually you're going to start to create this distance between the train and you. And then eventually it will just start going through the station, and you're just not getting on most of the time. And we don't block the thought coming in. We're just not attaching to it as a reality, as I said before. And that's when we're developing more meditative skills. We can live that way. And often then we can see the suggestion, you should be anxious about this, and we just let it go through. So I do hope that has made sense. The resources that I mentioned were Sam Miller, The Great Allowing on YouTube, and then Dare app, which again has a great kind of little course on health anxiety and just anxiety generally. And then of course, I would love it if you would join me as I'm launching the Mindful Body Method with Sam Miller. And this is very much going to be about a community where I'll teach these skills, but my clients are coming in who are already on this journey, and they will be testimony to how powerful it's been for them. Messy at times. So we all get messy together. That's the point. I think I said that in the last episode, but so worth it. I can't emphasize that enough. So if you would like to join me, we are just in the final processes working through the usual tech issues that I always tend to run up against. But even with those, I'm allowing them to be there, knowing that it's all going to unfold as it's meant to, trusting the process. But you can head to www.fitfood.com and just jump on the waitlist there, and we'll let you know as soon as the doors open. And it will be a short period of time because we have limited capacity. We want this to be a great experience for the founding members. So please just make sure that you're ready to join when it opens. And please do reach out if you would like me to do any more episodes focusing on particular topics. It's always really helpful for me. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this and it resonated with you.